We've got reactions ranging from Gilbert Arenas handing out perfect scores to Nick Young basically trashing the entire city, claiming Washington is just a graveyard for washed-up careers. Today, we are diving deep into the league-wide fallout after Anthony Davis got shipped to the Wizards. We are looking at takes from players and coaches alike, kicking things off with a guy who knows DC, basketball inside and out, Gilbert Arenas. We are talking about Agent Zero, the legend who put the team on his shoulders, drained clutch shots, and actually gave the Capitol a reason to care about hoops again. So, the moment the Davis trade hit the wire, Gil didn't waste a single heartbeat. He hopped right on Gil's Arena Times and stamped this deal with a massive A+. Make no mistake, he wasn't just hyping it up for clicks. He broke down exactly why this changes everything for the organization. He highlighted the two-man game with Trae Young, pointing out that their pick-and-roll action is basically a nightmare scenario for any defense trying to stop them. Then you look at the defensive ceiling. With young guns like Alex Sarr and Bilal Coulibaly running the wings, Gil sees a squad that can legitimately lock people down while scoring at will. In his view, pairing AD with Trae and Sarr while holding onto your draft assets is a home run. But look, Gil isn't wearing rose-colored glasses here. He is fully aware of Davis's medical chart. In the past, he's called AD frustrating to watch, joking about how every time the guy hits the floor, you're holding your breath thinking the worst. Even with those concerns, the former All-Star is all in on this move. He sees a playoff team if AD stays healthy, though he even suggested they might want to shut Davis down for now to tank for a better pick before making a real push next season. Then you have Nick Young. If Gil is the hype man, his co-host and fellow former Wizard brought strictly bad vibes to the discussion. Swaggy P let it fly with zero filter, delivering one of the harshest takes you will hear. He didn't care about the pick-and-roll stats or the defensive potential. He just saw a dead end. With his trademark bluntness, Young viewed the franchise as a retirement home the place stars go when their best days are already in the rearview mirror. He literally called D.C. the dumping ground for careers that are wrapping up. It was brutal, but he didn't stop there. He dug up that one nickname that has haunted Davis for seasons. The label Davis hates more than anything, Anthony Street Clothes Davis. The joke, of course, is that he spends more time dressed for the runway than the court. And to be fair, the stats don't lie. Davis only suited up for 29 games during his short stint in Dallas. Yet, even Swaggy P had to admit there is one upside. Trae Young might be the best playmaker Davis has ever paired with, and that offensive chemistry is undeniable. He just doubts Davis will stay off the injury report long enough for it to actually matter. Now, let's talk Naji Marshall. While the pundits argued from the sidelines, inside the Dallas locker room, one teammate couldn't hold back his immediate raw reaction. Marshall has been in the trenches with AD all year. When the alert popped up that Davis was DC bound, he did what everyone does these days. He hopped on X and dropped a single word that summed up the entire vibe. Wow. Honestly, that says it all. It perfectly captured the shock of the moment. You are playing next to a 10-time All-Star 1 second, and he is out the door the next. But here is the thing about Marshall. He didn't dwell on the surprise. He almost immediately shifted his attention to the future, specifically the massive beacon of hope that the Mavs are building around. We are talking about Cooper Flagg, the #1 overall pick, the generational phenom who landed in Dallas thanks to some lucky lottery balls. Marshall didn't mince words about his excitement, telling reporters, "I want to play with Cooper Flagg my whole bleeping career. That's my dog. He's going to make history, and it's a blessing just to be part of it." To him, losing AD wasn't the end of the road. It was day one of a potentially historic era. That reaction really nails the bittersweet nature of this trade for Dallas. Sure, saying goodbye to a superstar stings, but when you look at the roster and see a talent like Flagg, a guy with a once-in-a-lifetime ceiling, the future looks way brighter than the present. Now, let's pivot to Kyrie Irving. While Marshall was loud and proud about the future, Kyrie took a much calmer, more introspective route. And honestly, who can blame him? The guy has lived through roster chaos in Cleveland, Boston, Brooklyn, and now Dallas. He is watching the ground shift beneath his feet yet again. Irving released a statement through his agent that was calculated and precise, classic Kyrie, choosing his words very carefully. The vibe was that he is processing the move but staying loyal to Dallas. Insiders also confirmed there are zero plans to move him before the deadline. Actually, the front office sees him as the veteran mentor for Flagg, the bridge between eras who can help the kid navigate the insanity of the NBA. Former Mavs coach Avery Johnson hit up CBS Sports to highlight exactly why Kyrie's role is the biggest question mark right now.
What's next for this franchise to try to start rebuilding now around him?
Well, I think the key is going to be what happens with Kyrie Irving, because Kyrie, obviously, he'll sit out this entire season, with that ACL. What's next for him? Is he going to be a part of the short-term future? Because we know he's getting towards, the end of his career, or are they going to move him, in the off season to try to bring in another younger piece to continue this rebuild around Cooper Flagg?
Remember, back in his Boston days, Kyrie dreamed of a super team with Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant. That fantasy never happened, and now he is watching Davis leave Dallas too. Yet, Kyrie is sticking around for the next chapter, and there is something actually kind of touching about that. After bouncing around so many cities and locker rooms, he is choosing to stay put and play the long game. For a team that needs stability, that buy-in is worth more than any trade return. Now back to Avery Johnson. Sometimes the best insight doesn't come from the guys in jerseys. It comes from the coaches who have survived the war rooms and the agonizing front office meetings, the guys who really understand the mechanics of building a roster. That is exactly what Avery Johnson brought to the table during his breakdown on CBS Sports. Johnson said this move shouldn't surprise anyone paying attention. He called it closure. It is finally turning the page for a fan base that has been spiraling ever since the Luka Doncic trade shook the organization.
The headliner here is a year and 2 days after the Luka Doncic trade, the Mavericks already shipping Anthony Davis out of town. Hey, Avery, I remember talking to you a year and 2 days ago about the Luka trade that stunned everybody. I mean, how are people in Dallas going to feel about this?
No surprise. This was a situation where, the fans, they've been in an uproar about this Luka Doncic trade. So with Anthony Davis moving on, it's basically going to bring closure to what I call a generational trade. Fortunately for the Mavericks, they'll be able to shed about $70 million next year from their salary cap to give them more flexibility, really to build now around Cooper Flagg. This is the Cooper Flagg show. Well, I think they could be a play-in team in the Eastern Conference if they're healthy, but that's the big, question mark, right? Injuries is always the greatest neutralizer. And if you look at Anthony Davis being the cornerstone along with Trae Young, Trae Young's been injured, especially this season. So again, it's a big question mark. Yes, if they're healthy, can they be a play-in team? Yes, but that team is still not scaring anybody in the Eastern Conference.
Then there's the guy who, despite stepping back as a minority owner, still holds every Mavericks fan in the palm of his hand the second he grabs a mic. Mark Cuban, the architect of the championship era, the guy who spent 20 years screaming from the sidelines, bleeding Maverick blue. When the AD news dropped, Cuban didn't hesitate. His reaction was classic Cuban. Love it. At a glance, that sounds insane. Who celebrates shipping off a 10-time All-Star? But Cuban's business brain was already 5 steps ahead. He wasn't mourning the loss. He was calculating the gain. He admitted losing talent hurts, but he hammered home the upside. Draft capital and the freedom to construct a roster tailored to Cooper Flagg. Cuban had talked a big game about winning with Davis, even dreaming of the finals, but the basketball gods had other ideas. The reality? Davis suited up for just 29 games and sat out 51. The team went 31-49 during his tenure. The stats painted a bleak picture that no amount of optimism could fix, and Cuban was clearly ready to torch the script and start fresh with Flagg. Enter Stephen A. Smith. If anyone on this planet could turn a trade deadline move into a Broadway performance, complete with desk slamming and finger pointing, it's Stephen A. And he delivered exactly what you'd expect. Stephen A. didn't just analyze the X's and O's of the Davis deal. He weaponized it to prove a massive, conspiracy-laden point that has the entire NBA internet buzzing. On First Take, he rewound the tape to the original Luka saga, labeling it exactly what he thinks it is. Arguably the single worst trade in the history of the association.
The Mavericks' last 365 days are one of the more fascinating sagas that I've seen in my 2+ decades covering the league. not just because of the Cooper Flagg part of it, which they get a potentially generational player on the heels of trading one away, but also because Kyrie Irving got hurt. This is the act that nobody seems to ever count in it.
But when you look at Anthony Davis, he's played 29 games. He missed 51. They're 31 and 49 since he arrived in town. It's not good. And listen, Anthony Davis is an all-world player when healthy. He needs to understand, I'm glad you got your money, bro, because you will forever be attached to and synonymous with being the guy.
He threw out a wild theory. Maybe this tank job is a strategic play by the Adelson family to move the franchise to Las Vegas. He suggested it's easier to relocate a loser than a winner. He literally said his spidey senses are tingling regarding the casino connections. Whether you buy the Vegas conspiracy or think he's off his rocker, you have to respect Stephen A's ability to drag the conversation into territories nobody else would touch. Then you have Jake Fischer. While the debate shows were screaming, Fischer brought the actual intel. Jake Fischer is one of the sharpest insiders around. And he didn't just react, he dissected this trade like a surgeon. He admitted he was genuinely shocked that Washington emerged as the buyer. They weren't on anyone's bingo card. But what impressed Fischer was the execution. The Wizards turned Chris Middleton's expiring deal and some non-premium picks into a 10-time All-Star. That is the definition of buying low. Fischer pointed out the vision, pairing Davis with Alex Sarr to create a twin-tower frontcourt that could lock down the paint for the next decade. He also flagged this as a clear signal that the Wizards are all in on Trae Young, hinting that a contract extension is pretty much a done deal. Fischer had reported earlier that Atlanta was out of the running for Davis, which shrank the market and let Washington swoop in like a hawk. In a league where GMs constantly mortgage the next 5 years for a shot at the 8th seed, the Wizards managed to snag a superstar without gutting their young core or torching their draft stash. That's the kind of savvy front office maneuvering that doesn't always grab headlines, but it's exactly how you build a sustainable winner. Now, let's talk money with Bobby Marks. When it comes to the salary cap gymnastics, nobody explains the math better than Bobby Marks. The guy went from the front office to ESPN and made a career out of explaining the why behind the money. When the Davis trade hit the wire, he went straight to the spreadsheet. On the Dallas front, he was crystal clear.
I will say this. This was probably the best move that the Mavericks organization could do. And 80 is a great player, but he does not fit the Mavericks timeline. To be able to wipe the slate clean and pick up 5 picks, and you can debate all you want what the picks are, and give yourself a ton of flexibility to build your roster around Cooper Flagg. You will have a lottery pick and you move forward. You basically kind of cleanse yourself of everything that you've received in the Luka trade, except for Max Christie and that Laker pick here. And you move forward as an organization and you start building this thing the right way around your generational former number 1 pick in Cooper Flagg.
Marks loved it. He noted they basically hit the fast forward button on their rebuild, and he shut down the idea that having cap space alone would have solved their problems.
And basically you kind of like, you jump ahead of, like, if there's a line waiting for food, you basically have, you're basically skipping line in a good way. When we look at next year, when you have a lineup of Trae Young, Trae Johnson, Bilal Coulibaly, AD, and Alex Sarr, that's pretty good if they stay healthy, right? And you still have Carrington and Kaishan George, Will Riley, Champagne. I like what they did. Cap space is fool's gold. Cap space is overrated. They were not going to be able to get Trae Young in free agency. They were not going to be able to get Anthony Davis in free agency, and you go out and get him.
Marks called this a high upside gamble for Washington, stressing how little they actually gave up. They kept all their blue chip kids. And then there's David Aldridge. David Aldridge is royalty in this business. He's a Hall of Famer. And when he talks about DC sports, his word is basically law.
Anthony Davis, a blockbuster trade, 10-time All-Star, future Hall of Famer coming to the Wizards. Your reaction to the deal?
As surprised as everybody else. Not that they made a deal, but that it was for Anthony Davis.
Not that they made a move, but that the name on the jersey was Anthony Davis. That distinction matters. Aldridge wasn't shocked the Wizards took a swing. They've been signaling a pivot. He was shocked the target was Davis. And when he unpacked it, he highlighted the massive risk-reward dynamic at play. This isn't just a swing. This is a grand slam swing at the fences.
This is a big swing. This is a big old huge swing, not because of what they gave up, because when you really look at it, they didn't give up all that much in terms of draft picks, but just that they're taking the chance on AD being a contributing player. And again, this is all next season. I don't think he's going to play very much at all this season, if at all. But being able to be a player who stays on the floor long enough to help your young guys get better. And that is the puzzle and the conundrum that is Anthony Davis. And it has been for years. Nobody doubts the talent, but it doesn't matter if he never plays. And that's been his problem for much of the last 3 or 4 years. He just doesn't play very much. I mean, and the best case scenario is that he plays very well and Trae Young plays very well and this team makes the playoffs next year. While not giving up, and it's important to say this, they didn't give up any of their core guys.
Aldridge sees this as the Wizards officially hanging up the tanking sign and pivoting to win now mode. But he emphasized that the upcoming draft lottery is still their biggest swing, because even with Trae and AD on the roster, if you can snag a top pick in what scouts are calling a loaded draft, you're building the foundation for something special. But if that pick slides out of the top 8 and conveys to New York, that changes the math completely. The Athletic's Fred Katz summed up the move with a deceptively simple question that nailed the vibe. Why not? Honestly, when you sit down, strip away the hot takes and the noise, that might be the most rational reaction out there. Katz's logic was clean and compelling. He pointed out that when healthy, Anthony Davis is a monster. That's not up for debate. That's a fact. And the Wizards got him without touching their young core, no trading Alex Sarr, no trading Bilal Coulibaly. They kept their own first-rounders. They basically used matching salary and other teams' picks to land a future Hall of Famer. So yeah, why not? Katz also flagged the summer extension talks as something to watch. How they handle Davis's $62.8 million player option for 2027, 2028 will reveal a lot about the long-term vision. For Dallas, Katz viewed this as closure, the final chapter of the Luka era, and a necessary roster cleanse to build properly around Cooper Flagg. Sometimes in NBA discourse, where everything is either the greatest heist ever or a total disaster, the simple, level-headed take wins. Fred Katz nailed it with 2 words. Why not? Now, we get to a reaction from left field that perfectly captured the emotional side of this saga. O'Shea Jackson Jr., the actor, Ice Cube's son, but also a diehard Laker fan and serious hoophead. He was on Times The Rich Eisen Show, times when the news broke. While you guys were recording, Anthony Davis is on his way to the Wizards. How about that, poor guy? Those 2 words, poor guy, spoke volumes. Jackson didn't lead with analytics, trade grades, or cap space. He led with empathy, genuine sympathy for a player who's been shipped around and blindsided by front offices repeatedly. But then the conversation pivoted to D.C. as a basketball city, and Jackson got genuinely hyped.
Poor guy. Yeah. Poor guy. Why? Trae Young's there?
That's cool.
Let me tell you something.
Elsewhere.
When the Wizards get better, that area is going to be nuts over that team. That is a fan base ready to pop.
Yes, the DMV
for their basketball team.
The DMV, I shot swagger out there for years.
Listen, I said the NFL draft is in Washington, D.C. next year, 2027. Washington Wizards will be in the playoffs when we're there for the draft.
Absolutely not.
He said no.
I say yes.
I say yes too. What do you say?
Oh man, I don't know, man. I need Anthony Davis to be upset because this should not happen to a player of his caliber. The way that this has gone down, for him to be traded in the middle of the night, without
it happened today. It happened today.
No, I'm talking about with the Lakers.
Oh, okay.
That is the wrong way to handle a player like Anthony Davis. Yeah. We got Luka, so I'm gonna shut up. But for the next season, for you to be traded again, it's got to hit something in your heart. And I hope he returns to the player that won the championship in 2020. God bless Anthony Davis. I love him to death.
I think he's in a what a world. But I think he's in a good spot.
It's the Wizards.
I really do think so. What do you think of the Harden trade?
We can't wrap this up without mentioning Nick Wright, who delivered one of the most balanced takes of the day. Wright, who's never afraid to go against the grain, didn't hold back on the Dallas side of the deal, but he gave Washington their flowers where due.
Obviously, the Luka trade was a disaster, but a sub-disaster is getting this little out of 1 year of Anthony Davis and then Anthony Davis on the trade market. The fact that you got no playoff run with Anthony Davis, the fact that by my reading of it, you are trading Anthony Davis when his value is, you got less for Anthony Davis, markedly less than the Grizzlies got for Triple J.
Yeah.
And so that's not good business.
Why would you do it now? Why the urgency? Why couldn't you do it in the summer?
I don't understand the Mavs, and I think Brew's point is correct.
Wright questioned the rush and expressed real empathy for Mavs fans who got robbed through no fault of their own. But then he cut to the heart of why this trade makes total sense for the Wizards.
For Washington, I think this is a great move. So I disagree with you in this. Yeah, because to me, Brew, it is very little risk with potential very high upside. Like, I don't look at anything they traded away as something they're going to in 4 years be like, damn it. Like that's our version of trading away a young SGA, and now he's come back to be a league MVP.
They didn't dump a future superstar or burn their own picks. Worst case, the franchise is fine. Best case, they're legit contenders in the East. Very little risk, very high upside. Sometimes, that's the whole ball game. Thanks for watching. If you dug this video, click one of the boxes on your screen to check out more content like this.